Well, check it out, y'all. We got what you need. We're all living in apartments, condos, vans. Well, dude, even you can have a studio in a box. Yes, we can help you with that right here at Blind Knowledge. We work on your budget and we figure out your measurements. We'll get you the best sound for the best price. Let me know, 877-237-1143 or at blindknowledge.com. Yep.
Specters all around me, living in stark, blazing the dark. One by one, pictures gather round me. Where those moonflowers used to lost no more. Specters gather round here, living in stark, blazing the dark. Night by night, stare into the black where moonflowers used to grow.
Welcome back, everybody, to Paranormal, the New Normal, the show where I, your humble host, Jeremy, try to make this world seem a little more normal. Does it ever happen? Not really, but we try. It's all that matters. And on this epic quest of normalness I've been on, seems like most of my life, I bring a guest to try to help me with this. Will it help? No. But we try. My guest tonight is Miss Jocelyn Cruz, who, among many things, is an Ayurveda professional and holistic healer, and we'll get into all that and a lot more in a bit. But first things first, how you doing tonight, Jocelyn?
I am so good. I'm exhausted. It's been a long day, but it's great to be here.
It has been a long day. I think it's just well, at least by me, it's like a rainy day thing. It's just nasty out all day. So,
Yes.
but
And the aftermath of the eclipse, forget about it. It's just been like all week.
I don't know. I looked at the eclipse. It didn't really do anything, but made me go a little blurry for a second. But I mean, I didn't have the proper vision. But people, you should do not be like me. But it didn't really bother me too much. But glad it. I don't know. I kind of was hoping something more to come out of it, but I guess some people maybe.
It was a big thing. It wasn't the spectacle that I think we were all expecting.
Oh, I mean, I heard, it's the apocalypse. Oh, it's a spiritual awakening happening again. I'm like, no, it's just a facet of nature happening like it does every 30 years or so. So, but, I mean, I think I'm too much of a realist sometimes, and I need to open my mind a little to things that could happen. But that's me. But, well, start this interview off the same way I start everything off. What brought you down this spiritual path into the paranormal world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what actually brought me down this path that I'm on right now of holistic healing and spirituality is in 2018, I broke my foot. So it was a little bit of a reckoning, but I've been experiencing what we might call like paranormal activity forever. Like since I was a little girl, like I'd experienced spirits. And so I've always been kind of privy to the unnatural world, so to speak, or like what's happening far beyond what we know. And I actually shared with a business coach of mine recently, like within the past year, that I've always felt like an alien. Like I've never felt like I was from this planet. And I don't really tell a lot of people that. I mean, now I tell more people, but so, when I broke my foot in 2018 and literally was in a cast in bed, which was totally not normal for me. I'm like one of those people who's used to doing, and society is like laying in bed, bad, you should do stuff. I started diving into my own energetic body and my chakra system and really just dealing with healing my physical self, because you have a lot of time by yourself when you're laying in bed with a cast, and that was the beginning of everything, really. And it just kind of launched me into this quest for more and what's really out there. And believe it or not, it's led me to a whole new relationship with God. And like, the otherworldly, and it's just been a roller coaster ride ever since that I will never get off of.
Ooh, okay. Definitely some questions raised off that, but first things first. If I broke my damn foot and I'm laying in bed, I'm catching up on the freaking ancient Roman sprawl of TV shows and movies I have not seen.
Yes, I do that too.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, I'd be satisfied to do that for a few months and still not catch up on all the shit I want to watch. So, damn, like, I would enjoy the shit out of not gonna be able to get out of bed. It's funny, I actually saw a post on Facebook tonight. Actually, it's kind of synchronicity in a way, but it said, like, humans we're omnivores, we're carnivores, like, we're meant to have downtime and to be able to be lazy.
Yeah.
Don't You're not an insect. Don't think you have to be part of the hive, and just because everybody else is doing something, you have to do something. Like, so I mean, it kind of relates to what you're talking about. I mean, obviously, a broken foot kind of puts a downer on everything with that, so you kind of have no choice. But
Yes.
I mean, you have no
and then
choice.
the pandemic happened after that. So it was 2019, not 2018. So I broke my foot in November of 2019. I finally was walking and like back at work and back into my life in February 2020. And not but a few weeks after that, COVID hits, the world shuts down. I get furloughed from my job. And I was like, not again. So it was a real reckoning for me in the universe's way of saying, stop doing whatever you're doing.
See, I thought it was gonna be one of those situations where, like, you finally walk again, you like walk out your front door, and you're like, what the hell happened while I was down?
Like zombie land.
Exactly, like some zombie, like freaking like Walking Dead. You freaking wake up out of a coma and you're just like, what the hell? But you said you never felt like you're from this world, which kind of brings to mind one of my favorite terms in the freaking world on this show. Do you consider yourself a starseed?
A starseed, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's like definitely, yeah. Starseed, moonbeam, whatever you want to call it.
Moonchild, yeah. Yeah. So have you done any past life transgressions or anything like that to try to figure out if you have past lives on alien extraterrestrial planets or not, or?
I haven't looked into past lives on other galaxies or on other planets. I've looked into very recent past lives. I did a theta meditation once, like a theta brainwave meditation once, where I saw a past life as believe it or not, as a young boy in Vietnam. I was like I had a whole lifetime as a boy in Vietnam, which was interesting. And I feel like there was one other one before that, but I've not really looked into that. But I've always known that there's something that doesn't feel like it originates from here. And mostly what that looks like in my life is that it's almost like uncomfortable to be in a skin bag, is the way I say it. Like, to be in a physical body feels so limiting, and it sometimes actually is painful. Like, if I were to sit with it long enough, it's like daunting. And I often have visions of life beyond death and like the experience of vast nothingness. And I've had visions of that since I was a little kid. And, it's like you shy away from it because there's nothing scarier than the inevitable doom of like not being here anymore, like ceasing to exist. But also there's something really interesting and almost like comforting in that fear, like a homecoming, which I think kind of confirmed for me that I don't think I'm really from this planet. I don't think any of us are really.
Well, I mean, there are definitely those of us that I believe are. We may have been bred originally from creatures created on this planet by extraterrestrials. I 100% could see that possibility. But I mean, some of us are definitely from this planet because I mean, there's some of us that just fit in too well to this mold. And I mean, I'm not one of them,
Mm,
so I'm not vouching for them because I am not one of them by any fucking mean. I don't fit in any mold in the world. So I mean, yeah, no, I'm just the messenger. I am here to spread people like you, who I'm here to spread the word to people like you. That's my purpose. I figured that out a couple years ago, and this shows how I achieve my purpose, and
mm.
people seem to agree with that. So I just do what I am meant to do, and I've been told by people that's what I'm meant to do as well. But psychics, mediums, all that good stuff. So I mean, I've been told by multiple people on the show that's what I'm meant to do, and I mean, I never have felt really like starseeds tend to describe it to me that they don't belong on this planet. Like I don't. I mean, I feel like I don't fit in on this planet, but I definitely don't feel like I don't
Mm.
belong here. Like I feel like I'm meant to be here, but I mean, if I'm really for Starseed, that'd be freaking awesome. Not gonna lie, but I do feel like I'm meant to be here. And then again, we all may be living in a video game played by extraterrestrials, and we're all NPCs. Who the hell knows? But who
Yeah,
the hell knows?
I have a black hole theory that we're all dead millions of years ago and we're just replaying our lives in like 5D and we've already predestined and predetermined everything that there ever was meant for us to do in our lifetime. So,
But actually,
conspiracy
Har-
theories for the win.
Harley is a good question though, and that's what's down. What's what's downtime? Which yeah, yeah. I mean, I think downtime's something I had in my early 20s. Harley, I don't know anymore,
Yeah,
but
right.
I think it's something I had in my early 20s in between jobs. But it existed at one point in my life. I don't think it exists anymore. I have very little downtime, but I guess it's at 7 hours a night I get sleep, maybe. If the dogs or kids don't wake me up, But so that's what it is. But there's something else you said there that made me pause for a second. Well, actually, kind of. Well, okay. I don't like to talk about this too much in this show because YouTube could be bitch about censoring stuff. But what did you think of the big C that you mentioned that you came out of your foot surgery back into, kind of
Yeah.
COVID? Yeah.
Yeah. So it, again, I shared like that. It's interesting that you talk about downtime and the question comes up about downtime because I was one of those people who had none. Like I had no down. I was like, "What's downtime? What's that?" That was like downtime was a luxury for lazy people. It was like that was not something that was for me. So, when I had to actually stop my life and stop working so hard, working like, gosh, man, there were days where I was up at 6 in the morning and I wouldn't go to sleep until maybe 1, 2 a.m. sometimes. And I was just that way. Like I thought that's how life was supposed to be, right? That's what it meant to be successful. And, I broke my foot and then it was like, do nothing. And I had all the time in the world. And it took me a good like month and a half to actually feel comfortable with that. So then, I get back out into the world and I'm ready to go back to this busy life. And then COVID hits. So for me, I really saw it as a sign. I think I was annoyed as much as everybody else was. And like I have to say I wasn't scared. Like there were people, we had friends who talked to us a couple weeks prior and said like they're making a big stink about this thing, it's the real deal. And I remember sitting at my partner's birthday dinner and we were just laughing at this friend. We were making fun of him. We were like, "Oh, you're crazy." And then sure enough, 2 weeks later, everything gets shut down. The world gets shut down. We were like, "Man, we should just listen to him." So at first, I was like annoyed because I got furloughed from my job. But then it was such a blessing. I mean, I think it was not just for me, but for all of us, because I found it was really a time for people to take a good hard look at their life. You know, like relationships either really worked and made it through COVID, or you didn't make it. Like people got divorced, people broke up, and then people pivoted their careers. They left their jobs. They actually started hanging out with their family and their friends. They were outside. You know, so I think I really think, talk about the apocalypse, you know, it's like, I think that COVID was a global happening that was meant for us to take a real hard look at the way we've been living. Like it really was, in a way, divine intervention to say, whatever you're doing, the way in which you're doing it isn't working. And it's time to reassess.
See, yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was actually that guy at my job that was like, yeah, there's this thing that's going on in China and in Europe, and maybe we should start being worried about it because it's starting to come to the US. And my boss has said, if you mention that one more fucking time, I swear to God. And
You're the one we made fun of.
I was looking forward to getting some time off work. That's what I was looking forward to. But and then like you said, a week later, oh, March 20th, 2020 hits, and bam, oh, all non-essential are to stay home until further notice.
Yeah.
Okay. I worked for a small ass company with literally 3 employees at my level. And guess what? COVID hit, and oh yeah, okay, we're going home. We'll let you know when we're reopening. That was March. It gets to around May, June. And around June, I'm like, calling my boss, like, hey, are we coming back to work? He's like, I'll let you know soon. And then July hits, I'm like, we coming back to work? And like, I sent emails out to like people I work with, I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I finally get him on the phone about a week later. He was like, well, not even him. I get, a week later, I get him on the phone. He's like, we're trying to figure out a way to bring everybody back and make it affordable. And then a week later, I get his admin on the phone. Oh, he didn't put it right. He didn't say it the way he should have said it. We can't afford to bring you back. Oh, okay. Yeah, please come clean out your office and sometime soon. Because, you know, I had a 150 Funko Pop collection in my office and everything else and a lot of other collectibles because I worked there for a long time and I built up I had an awesome freaking office setup. So it took me a good 6 hours to clean up my office. But, I mean, and a full car. I had I had an SUV and it was freaking full. But, I mean, it was a full car. I have boxes of my crap piled up, which I'm now selling on eBay. But, I mean, it was life-changing because I'm like, okay, I've been working this job for 5 freaking years since I moved to this state. And I'm like, what do I do with my life now? I haven't done anything else in a long time. Like, I was doing data entry before this job. Like, I don't want to go back to that. So I'm like, what do I do now? And like this job's unique. There's not really many other jobs like this job in this area. So I'm like, what the hell do I do now? I mean, I ended up finding a job like a month later because it was the only one that called me back out like 70 places because it was a crazy time for all companies. But so I finally found a job and blah, blah, blah. I'm not even at that job anymore, but I did it for a good 2-3 years. But so, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I feel like it was just more of a nuisance than anything. That's all I feel like it was. I mean, yes, it got me out of working at a small company. There was no room for growth no room for promotion in. I mean, yeah, raises, sure, but no room for, like, there's nowhere to go. You already hit the ceiling. You're not going to get to a position higher unless you buy into the company. So, I mean, it's just the way it went. So, I mean, now I'm in a career type job where there is places to go eventually. It just takes a long time, but there's places to go. Am I going to stay here forever? Who the hell knows? I don't know. I could if it seems like it's working, it's working. If it doesn't seem like it's working, I'll go somewhere else. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. COVID was and it was weird. It was just freaking weird having to wear masks. Like, because it's funny, because you study the Spanish flu in the late 1910s, like when you're in school and stuff, and you're like, you see like the people wearing the freaking Renaissance bird masks and everything during it, and it's just like
Yes.
it's like what the. I'm like that would never happen again these days. We're more medically advanced. Well, guess what? Yeah. And we don't get to wear the cool bird mask. We get to wear the stupid freaking cloth mask or the stupid paper
Mhm.
mask. Like, not even the cool like goth mask. Like, damn. But it's just, I don't know. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. And I mean, some people say it was a spiritual awakening too, because more and more people. It was, well, not the spiritual awakening because that was 2012, but it was a plan for the spiritual awakening was for this to happen because more and more people started embracing their spiritual side during this because they had nothing else to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. We could debate that all day. But the other thing you said in that introductory answer basically was that really got me thinking was you say you think you're a starseed, but you also said God.
Yes.
Those two things are like oil and vinegar or oil and water. They really don't blend together too
Mhm.
well. So
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
kind of curious. How do you think that you're extraterrestrial based, but also believe in a God? Because that kind of is a contradictory statement right there.
Ugh. So this, believe it or not, this is one of my favorite conversations to have because, I said this to someone once, and I was like, "Oh, this is so brilliant." That sometimes I feel like God is a bad word. It's like, ooh, it's the G word, right? Because it elicits so much in people. Like there's so many strings that get pulled and so many places that it triggers people, and it's become it's become such a thing, and when I say God, it's not the man with the beard, and that I think a
Well,
lot of us like, not
yes.
you.
No. I mean,
Watching you
I,
over there with the big beard.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been called God by some people, but we won't go into that. We won't go into that.
But it's like some people think of God, and we think of this big dude, this like big old white dude with like this long beard and a flowy robe, and it's not to say that that's not God. If that is your interpretation of God, like, that's your prerogative, and no judgments, right? And I've had to actually reframe my relationship with God because, it was like the God that I grew up with, and I grew up loosely Roman Catholic. Like I went to church and did all the churchy things because mostly my mom wanted me to get married in a church someday. But
Hmm.
um, it's like I never personally was religious, and I had lots of questions about religion growing up. Like, how come gay people can't be here? Or why is it weird for me to wear black nail polish in a church? Or, I just like had all of these questions from very young. And and I think that I equated God with religion. And when I took those apart and I said, okay, there's religion and then there's God, for me,
Hmm.
it opened up this whole world. So for me, when I talk about God, I often use a singular masculine presence, mostly because it's what really comforts me and it's what soothes me to know that like God is this beautiful masculine presence in my life. But I think God is like everything, and God is nothing. God is in the plants and in the trees and in the rocks, but God is in the air and in the sun and in the universe. And I'm like a total nerd, like absolute nerd. And one of the things I nerd out about is cosmology and literal space. And I'm fascinated by the Big Bang and how things actually came into form. But it's like you watch these documentaries about the cosmos and about the planets and about the Big Bang. And you can't, at least for me, like I can't help but sit there and say, there must be some mastermind orchestrating all of this. Because it's just too damn beautiful to not have something like benevolent that's just orchestrating all this stuff.
I mean, okay, multifaceted answer here to that. Well, one, I am perfectly fine if God looks like Alanis Morissette. I am perfectly fine with that. Kevin Smith may have been right. Kevin Smith may have been right, but
That's right.
I mean, I mean, and I think it's funny that the image of God that Christians use for most of the 1900s is basically Zeus.
Yes.
I find that hilarious. You know, the rapiest of all gods, but that's just ironic at topness. But I mean, I do believe. I mean, I'm agnostic these days. I was brought up Christian too, but I'm agnostic these days, and I 100% believe there's something out there. There has to
Mhm.
be in a way, whether it's an extraterrestrial race that created what we know as space. I mean, I'm not saying we don't know what all space is, so we don't know where they came from, but they might create our galaxy at least,
Yeah.
and it might have been a science experiment. Who the hell knows? And I mean, the other theory I have is basically, like you said, God's in everything, and all what we call God or the Creator is basically, like Futurama said, molecules, dust particles
Hmm.
that are sentient and have intelligence. So I mean, did Bender meet the true God? Maybe, maybe.
This is a great
Futurama,
episode.
future. Oh, it's a great episode. Amazing. I mean, it teaches why no one should play God. But I mean, Futurama did have the most intelligent writing staff of any cartoon in history. So
Mhm.
they all had doctorate. A lot of them had doctorates. So I mean, yeah, it's impressive that they spent their time writing one of the greatest cartoons of all time. But I love it. But it's just maybe that is what this creator is. Maybe it is just sentient dust
Yeah.
particles that were able to create or knew what had to happen for things to get created. Not even like this dust particle just thought of it and bam. Like maybe it's just okay, if I move these particles here and these particles here, okay, Big Bang, bam, we're done. Let's see what happens in the next 2 billion years. But so I mean, I mean, I could never actually say what God is because I don't know. I'm not gonna
Right.
be a hypocrite and say because that's why I hate religion. Because they say they know what God is, and that you don't. You can't. It's impossible. Oh, something talks to you. Do you know it's God? Because it might not be. There's a lot of things that talk to people. There's a lot of things in this paranormal world that talk to people on a regular basis. Not all of them are good. So who's talking to you? Do you really know? Do you have caller ID in your head that you could tell me who the voice is? So I mean, and sorry to people out there who believe they do talk to God. I mean, if you say you do, then I kind of believe you do because that's what you believe, and there has to be a reason you believe that. But are you really? Are you? Are you? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not gonna put faith behind it too much, ironically. So let's get with this before I lose half my audience. But because it could happen, it could happen. I
Yeah.
know I have
Have
people.
you
I know I
actually
have
watched Three Body Problem on Netflix?
not yet. I've seen
Oh, it's a
previews
good
for.
one.
I saw previews for it. I read what it was about. And I'm like, I gotta watch that. But once again,
It's a good one.
the scroll unrolls, and the list of things I have to watch for podcasting alone is like a 20-foot scroll. And then things I don't have to watch for podcasts I want to watch is like another 2,000-foot scroll. So it's going dating back to the freaking 60s. So it's like, yeah, come on.
I get
It's
it. But it's
I
right,
will
it
never.
is right there. This conversation, God is a sentient
Uh,
being, like an extraterrestrial race. It's a brilliant, brilliant watch. I mean, it's
all
based off
right.
of a book, but it's just so well done.
Now I may have to give it a watch. Now you say that's what it's really about. Okay, it's moving up the list slowly, but I'll have to try. I got a lot of stuff to watch in the next couple weeks, but I'll definitely give it a try at some point. So let's get a little bit back to you though, because that's what this is about. So you started looking more into yourself and discovering kind of abilities you have while you're laid up for your foot. And then I'm sure during COVID you were able to get more into that because, time is everything when you're sitting around doing nothing all day and you
Yes.
can't do anything. So when did the Ayurveda come into it? When did that start
Mm,
playing a role?
yeah. So in 2019, I registered for a yoga teacher training. And I've practiced yoga on a mat, like physical yoga on a mat, for years, since I was like 16 years old. And I registered for a yoga teacher training, and then COVID happened. And then that teacher training inevitably didn't happen because it was in person, and that's what we did back in the day. And it turns out that I had a friend of mine who led a yoga teacher training online. So I was like, awesome, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I ended up doing her yoga teacher training, and that's how I was first introduced to the world of Ayurveda. And immediately it spoke to me. And it spoke to me because it was simple. It was archetypal. Like, we categorize everything into these three main energies. And it was practical. It was something that I could practice and explore in my kitchen without needing to go to like an herbalist store, like an apothecary. And eventually I did, and I have all those wacky wild herbs, but it was so accessible to me and I was so drawn to it. So I stayed with the company that did the yoga teacher training, and eventually I actually started leading the yoga teacher training at that company. And I finally took the dive a little over a year ago, like a year and a half ago, to study and get certified in Ayurveda. And, you know, I've been certified as an Ayurvedic wellness coach, and I'm expanding and studying to be an Ayurvedic health counselor now. And it has just provided so much for me, both physically and spiritually. And it's allowed me to dive so much deeper into my own abilities as a healer, and really in my passions for being able to have people find their own capacity to heal themselves.
Which that's actually a topic that comes up a lot in this podcast. I mean, yes, I'm in the top 3 science podcasts on GoodPod, so I guess it's kind of natural it comes up. But I mean, I started this podcast, I never saw myself talking to healers as much as I do, or psychics or mediums. But I mean, these things kind of happen for reasons, and I just go with the flow. I mean, my listeners seem to like discussions with the healers, so I love them as well. I learned a lot of them, so I can't complain. But so for my listeners who are new and may not have heard this topic before, what is Ayurvedic healing in like a nutshell? I expect you to give like a 2-hour TED talk on it, but like in a nutshell, what does it do?
Yeah. So Ayurveda, the word Ayurveda is Sanskrit, and it's kind of like Latin. It's this old language that we really only use for these modalities. Like we use it in yoga and we use it in Ayurveda, and it comes from the Vedas. And the Vedas is this ancient collection of texts that were downloaded by sages. Now, some people say that they were people. Some people say maybe they were extraterrestrials. This is like alien knowledge. But it's a little bit like the pyramids. When the Egyptians built the pyramids and the Maya built the pyramids, and people were like, how in the world did they get this technology? So Ayurveda is a wild technology that knew things that you couldn't necessarily know 5,000 years ago. So it's 5,000 plus years old. So they knew things like you have your third eye. That's the makings of an eyeball. That's why we call it a third eye, because the actual tissue is the same as a fetal tissue that grew into eyeballs, like the same cellular structure. Then they knew that like 5,000 years ago. So people are like, well, maybe it really was extraterrestrials. And what it does is it gives us this guide, a guidebook on how to live the most optimal life as a human being. So you can find things in Ayurveda that are pertinent to your literal physical health and well-being, to your spiritual health and well-being, all the way to how to be in community and how to be a leader. I mean, it's like the extent of the knowledge is massive. But in a nutshell, what it says is that there are 3 archetypal energies. One is really fiery. One is earthy and sticky and wet, and the other is like windy and airy and movable. And all things in existence fall into these three categories. And all of us exist with some like pie chart ratio balance of all these three energies. And anytime we have too much of one of these energies, we're out of balance. And when we're out of balance, it leads to disease. So that's Ayurveda in a very small nutshell.
Which, I mean, it was described in a good way in a nutshell, because it all makes sense perfectly, and anybody can understand that. So,
Yeah.
which, I mean, the idea that we're made up of these energies, basically the four elements. I know it's only three in this case, but I mean, two of them are kind of combined together. I guess you could say the earth and water. You could say the earth and water are kind of one, but I mean, it's this basic idea that there's four main elements on Earth or in the universe, really, and well, as far as we know, and basically we are made up of them, and which makes sense because as people who listen to my show know, the elementals of all four of these exist on Earth in forms of sprites and fairies and fae. Like, they do exist, and whether they're there just to cause havoc for people or they're there to actually do good, still debated. But I mean, it makes sense it all exists. But how does can Ayurvedic healing actually heal, say, a broken foot or a sprained ankle or really bad heartburn or other issues?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's not in and of itself going to literally grow your bone back. Like, if you break a bone and it's sticking out of your skin, you should probably go to a doctor, get it realigned, and probably get a couple screws in there, right? So they're like things that it's not going to literally do. And it definitely supports that. So you can use Ayurvedic healing to support bone growth, right? So, for example, we say that the growth of anything, really, like the capacity to grow or for cellular structures to reproduce, is this earth type kind of element, right? It's the element that's dense and brings things together. It builds. So what you want to do is, if you have a broken bone, you would incorporate a lot more of this earthy, buildy, sticky kind of Play-Doh energy into your body with the foods that you eat and with the kind of things that you do. So that's why rest is and a lot of it is highly intuitive. It's like no brainer, right? But rest has you stay still. And rest is one of the best things to do for any injury when you've got something broken or out of alignment, right? And then by the other token, if you look at heartburn is this fiery experience. We call it heartburn because it's acidic. So what you do in the world of Ayurveda, again, totally intuitive, is you want things that are going to be cooling and that are going to be grounding, because heartburn is an up and out energy. So you want down and out energy, but you also want cooling, calming, slow down energy. So it really is a science of the opposites, which kind of, if you think about it, is quite simple. But Ayurveda also gets very intricate because it marries spirituality and it marries these subtle energies with actual biochemistry and science in a way that I find is really brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty simple the way you describe it is simple. I mean, of course, I mean, if you with heartburn, yeah, exactly everything you said for heartburn, like that's what you
Yeah.
want. I mean, it's kind of funny you want to push the gas down. I mean, it makes sense because that's exactly what you want, actually. But
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
so. I mean, it's just. I mean, I take a damn pill every day, so I'm good. But it's just one of those things. I mean, holistic healing to me, it's always it's one of those things where like you have to believe in it for it to work. I mean, you could take 3 Tylenol and you really don't have to believe it's going to work. It's going to work 90% of the time, but I mean, you don't have to believe it's going to work. I mean, you could truly believe it's not going to work, and guess what? You're going to be wrong. But it's just because I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, how is the science healing that most people use nowadays, the Western medicine healing, how is it different from this type of healing? Like how why would people choose holistic healing over like proven science is more the question.
Yeah. Well, somebody said something like this on a post that I was following, and they said something like, you know, it was a post about somebody getting an oil treatment, an Ayurvedic oil treatment for something they were dealing with. And someone said, yeah, but has it been scientifically proven? And I responded to their comment and I said, well, you know, just so you know, 5,000 years of experience is enough for me to say we have a lot of data on this stuff because we've been doing this for, like, we as humanity and human beings here on earth, you know, we've been practicing these holistic modalities since the dawn of human being, right? Like since species. And if you even look at primates will gather herbs when they're sick, certain species of primates. And, you know, so I find it to be quite intuitive. And to answer your question, the primary difference between Western medicine and Eastern medicine or holistic medicine is that Western medicine seeks to solve the symptoms. So they see, okay, you have heartburn. So let's give you, what is it, Prilosec? That's like the usual one that they give you or something.
Yeah. I mean, omeprazole is the generic name, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, you've got heartburn. We'll give you this pill and it'll have the acid be a little bit more basic. It will calm down the acid that's actually coming up, right? And will impact the stomach and what's happening there. But Ayurveda and a lot of other holistic healing methods will say, okay, you have heartburn, but why are you so acidic in the first place? And their job, holistic healing, holistic really, like as in the whole person, it's going to look at what are you eating? Who's in your life? Do you have a lot of fiery people with you? Are you working at a fiery job where there's a lot of demand on you all the time? Or do you have kids who are driving you up the wall and like you barely get a break? Or it's also like spiritually, like, are you angry? Is there something you're resentful about? So we look at the whole human from all angles. And it's not to say, like, I don't like to talk about one being better than the other, because I really think that true healing, like the ultimate next level healing for all of humanity, exists at the intersection of Western medicine and holistic medicine. Because if you're taking the Western medicine that alleviates the symptom, you feel better. And when you feel better, you have more energy to do the deep looking and to look holistically. Because let's be real, like that, it takes something to be able to look at your life and to self-examine. And if you feel really good, then you have the energy to do that. And then while you're mitigating your symptoms, you can then look at everything else in your life and one by one start to realign things in a way that works for you. And the other big difference that I find with holistic healing and Western medicine is that Western medicine is very one size fit all. And I think that's why we get a lot of people giving certain medications and then we have to try something else or try something new and it doesn't always work. And it's not to say holistic healing doesn't have that aspect to it. But holistic healing really looks at the individual, and because we're looking at the whole human. So we're really getting personalized when we're dealing with holistic healing.
Which, I mean, yeah, the way you describe it does make sense. I mean, Western medicine, I wouldn't say is a one size fits all because, I mean, like you said, there are a dozen different medications for the same disease because it doesn't all fit all. Certain people need certain other elements in these medicines to make it work, which I guess kind of ties into Eastern medicine a little bit because they might need a little more of this additive in this medicine than the original one has, and that might help soothe what's going on with them. Yeah, omeprazole is 100% one size fits all for most part. I mean, yeah, there's a weaker version of it too, but it doesn't freaking work for shit. They made me try it after my stomach surgery, and no, so much pain, so much pain. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I probably will be taking omeprazole to the day I die because I it's easy. It's one freaking pill in the morning, and you're good for 24 hours. And it's better than not being able to eat what you want because you're going to be in pain if you do.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I still can't freaking eat a grapefruit if I want to, or I'll be in pain even with the pill. But that's just that's a very high acidic fruit, so what do you expect? But so I see. I guess I haven't tried Eastern medicine, holistic healing as much as I'd like to. It's because I really don't know anywhere around me to go get it done. I don't really have the time to get it done. Like there's a lot of factors that play into it because I have met people who have done that type of stuff, and it takes a lot of time because you're going to see that
Yeah.
person 2 or 3 times a week usually at least. So it's like it takes time. And that's fine. I went to chiropractors when I was younger and stuff, so I understand like that type
Yeah,
of
it does
healing
take
takes.
time. That is true.
I mean, it's not
It's
like
not a band-aid in the way that Western medicine is. Like, it's like I've been getting over a cold, and I have this it's not Robitussin, it's actually a little bit stronger than that, but I have some cough medicine in my medicine cabinet. And I've been taking my honey tinctures with all of my herbs, and I've been doing a saline rinse in my nose, and then I go to my medicine cabinet and take my cough medicine, and it's like, oh my god, I feel so much better, right? So it does it, and I think it's worth saying that because I feel like a lot of people say no, holistic medicine is so much better for you, but it does take longer because we're working with things from the root issues. So it's like it's going to take a while, one, to get to the root issue, and then it's like a car driving 100 miles an hour. You got to hit the brake, and then it's going to slow down before it comes to a stop. So it's going to take something to alleviate the symptom and then heal what's happening. Because mostly, most times when you have a symptom like heartburn, there have been other things happening for a long time that by the time you have actual symptoms of disease, like things that are problematic, you've had this root issue for like years sometimes for some people. Cancer is a great example of that.
oh yeah. Cancer is a whole nother beast. It basically we truly to this day don't know what it comes from. We don't know what
No.
causes it. So it's a whole, we can guess at things that may cause it, radiation and all that, but we don't really know what causes it. There are people who are never on radiation in their life before cell phones were invented that had cancer. So, who knows? It's a whole nother world. And I've heard miraculous stories of holistic medicine healing cancer when Western medicine couldn't. I've heard miraculous stories of it, and I believe the people who tell me that they're telling the truth. So, it's anyone's guess, really, because I've also heard of Western medicine now, well, in the last few years, that is curing cancer, and it's not coming
Yeah.
back. So, are they taking cues from Eastern medicine? Maybe. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm not in pharmaceutical industry, so I don't know. I don't have
That'd
full
be a
details and
great
all that.
question, though.
It-
That's a great topic.
it is, and it's interesting. But speaking of miracles, which is kind of the reason I went into that, because one of the things you advertise yourself as is a miracle worker in ways medically, and kind of curious to hear some examples of some that you've performed, just because who doesn't like to hear about miracles? It's been a hot topic since the freaking early days of Christianity.
That's right. And even before that, right? So, I think the first thing I want to share is to really look at the nature of the word miracle. And believe it or not, like it kind of fits right into our conversation, because one of the definitions of a miracle is, a circumstance or a situation that had divine intervention. And, like whatever you believe, I find that when people have faith, even if it's simply the faith that they'll get better versus someone who's so sure that they're going to get worse or die, those people who have faith, I've seen so many times over that they make it and they get better. And so when I talk about miracles too, I want to presence that, because for me in my work particularly, where I stand in creating miracles is allowing for the space for divine intervention. Now, that's not to say like God will come down or angels will come down and like rearrange people's molecules, but it's a nuanced space of allowing. So one example of that is I had a client who came to me and she said, I want to transform my relationship to my body. So, I was like, great, game on. I love that. I've done that for myself, right? And when she and I were working together, I would check in with her every week. And at one point she said, I haven't had any experience of shame in my body. And she was gotta have been in her late 50s or early 60s. And she's like, I've had shame my whole life. And all of a sudden, like, I don't have any more shame in my body. And one of the protocols that we did was doing a self oil massage. And she shared that she was looking in the mirror and massaging her belly. And this is a mom of 4. And she shared that she just burst into tears. And she just was so grateful for the miracle that her belly provided. It eats food, it digests food, like your mouth eats food, but your belly digests food and it provides nutrients, and it held these 4 children that she'd had. So, I find that to be a miracle in the world of the inexplicable, right? It's like, well, how on earth does she go from shame to having no shame? And then I had another client who was dealing with a lot of inflammation in her joints and plantar fasciitis in her feet. And one of the root causes, speaking of looking at root causes that we saw, was that she was inflamed, but literally like inflamed on a soul level. Like she had never given herself time and space. She'd worked for like really notable companies almost her whole life. She had always been really busy. So when we started to integrate these protocols, literally things like take a bath every night, or things like stop shaming yourself for eating an Oreo at 10 o'clock before you go to bed. Enjoy the freaking cookie. And created things that brought this self-love, her inflammation started to go away. Now, we also changed things like what she ate. But when we looked holistically at how she was inflamed, even in her being, like just being so full and like always having to do and always having to move and go, when we slowed down, her body began to heal itself. And that's one of the things that also drew me to Ayurveda is Ayurveda says we all have the capacity to be healers. Maybe not like I put my hands on you and I cure you of some chronic illness, but we all have this capacity to will into existence divine healing. And divine doesn't have to mean God. Divine could just mean like higher light, or like we were talking about earlier, calling on sentient particles to come and do the healing for you.
It just I mean, it takes belief, it takes dedication, it takes patience, and not
Yeah.
everybody. I mean, hell, I don't have all those traits. I mean, I have a hard time believing in a lot of things, and I can't even meditate because I don't have patience. So
It's funny
it's
that you have
just
a paranormal podcast.
because these topics interest me. That's why I do, because
Yeah.
these topics. I mean, yeah, I came into this totally expecting to talk about like Bigfoot and Mothman and stuff like that every episode of the show. Found out soon enough that's not the way it's going to go, and I'm fine with that. But I've gotten my episodes like that out, and I've had immense fun doing those. But I've also had immense fun talking to people such as yourself, who are more on the spiritual side of things and the paranormal side of things, and it's always a good conversation. I have never sat here and been like, I'm bored. Like, no, it's never
Mhm.
that way. It's always a fun, enlightening conversation. It's never, I mean, it never turns into like a screaming. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. There's been one or two episodes where it turned into like a battle of like trying to outdo each other with the next question because it's just like, yeah, you're gonna tell me that extraterrestrials are demons. We gotta talk about something. But yeah, no, not naming names. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I have my belief systems. They don't change much. I mean, actually, no, that's a lie. My belief systems have changed dramatically doing this show, but
Mm,
my main beliefs I've always had don't change. I'm a science-minded person first and foremost, and if I see bullshit, I call bullshit. But I don't see it too much in these on my interviews. I really don't, especially with spiritual people, because they're not the type to bullshit. They're the type that, and
mm,
I could sense it. I mean, I'm supposedly an empath. I haven't unlocked that third eye yet to unlock that, but I mean, I have some of it still because I can honestly, I could look at a person's face and tell me I could either see they're lying or or at least to them they're not lying. And
mm.
on this show I rarely ever see people that look like they're lying to me. So, and I don't get the feeling they're lying a lot of the time. Like it just feels like they're being 100% truthful with what they believe and things they've seen and that you can't deny things you've seen. I mean, at least well, you can, but most people won't. But I mean, it's still so yeah, I mean that's why I run paranormal podcasts. I don't have the abilities. I want to learn about the abilities, which I mean,
Yeah.
best way to put it. Best way to put it. And but before we wrap it up, because freaking hour flew by. Oh my god! But
I
which when
know.
we don't have to stop at an hour necessarily. I mean, as long as we have a good conversation, I really don't care how long it is. My listeners get some longer episodes here and there, but I saw when I was studying you for this episode that you do work in women's health a lot, which I like to always put a spotlight on that because I mean, feminine topics are very important in this day and age, and so I'm
Mm,
gonna stand up the podcast game one, and then two, just because I have a lot of women in my life I care about. I'm a married man with a daughter, so I have a lot of women in my life I care about. So I always try to shine a light on feminine topics a little bit. So the question I usually ask people in this situation when the whole episode's not about that is what would be the main advice you have for women of the world?
That's like such a broad question.
It is, but the answer is
Yes.
always different, and I love it.
You know, like I'm just going to go with what my gut says. And I have to tell you, it's so funny. This is almost always the very first thing that comes up when I'm on a podcast with a man, which is kind of funny. But what I would say is like have great orgasms. And I know it's like it's so
Did
funny.
not see that coming. Did not see that coming.
Yeah, it's that's honestly like the best medicine for women is bliss and pleasure. And if you're like, and I say this too because I say this really for all the little girls in us women or people who identify as women. It's like I started experimenting with my own sexuality when I was 5.
Mhm.
And there's so like I can't believe I'm going to share this, but I'm going to share this. So, recently, I do a lot of looking into my past to do like healing a lot of the time.
You have
And
to.
in the past year, absolutely. And in the past year, I remembered this incident, and I had forgotten it until I remembered it. but I was in probably like second grade, and I learned how to self-pleasure by like just kind of squeezing my thighs together, like doing Kegels. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting there, and I went through a phase in elementary school where I was like the boys' girl. I was like hanging with the boys, and I wasn't quite a tomboy, but I would like wrestle with the boys because I didn't quite fit in with the girls. So I
Mm-hmm.
sat at this table with three friends of mine who were all boys in second grade. And I'm sitting there doing my Kegel thing and like at the table with all these boys. And one of them looked at me and was like, "What are you doing?" And in that moment, I decided sex is private. Like I'm not supposed to do it. I'm not supposed to talk about it. I'm not supposed to share it. And in adulthood, in my adult womanhood, like there's so much out there. There's so much literature, so much information, so many teachers, myself included now, that advocate for a healthy sex life and a healthy self-pleasuring for women, because there's so much conditioning that says it's bad or it's not proper. And, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, but, there's also like, I think a little bit of collective masculine fear of what might happen if women in the world were to have really great orgasms all the time and be sexually free. Like, what would happen if all women were sexually free, right? It's it's kind of like a little bit of a dystopian thought.
It's
But I'd love to
see,
hear what you say about that.
see, well, okay. One, I agree. Sex should be a private thing to some degree. I mean, it gets public in certain areas, but I mean, it should be private for most. I mean, that's to
Yeah,
me is
like
more
maybe
people's.
a
That's
Dionysian like orgy
I,
all over the place. That's probably not the best idea. Although who
oh,
knows?
let's not talk about my college days. But I mean, that to me is at people's discretion whether they want to be, because especially in the world now of social media and
Oh yeah.
things like things like OnlyFans and Unfiltered, sexuality is no longer a private thing for most, for not I won't say most, but for a lot of men and women, it's no longer a private thing because they're basically selling it. Like so, I mean, it's kind of taking a weird turn in the world where if this happened 50 years ago by some miraculous thing, if we had technology like we do now 50 years ago, these people would be getting strung up like witches because it would be so morally wrong for every religion back then. So, I mean, it's a weird turn that you can go on Twitter and your Twitter feed is a lot of OnlyFans retweets, like from guys and mainly guys, but from women that support them as well, which I 100% agree with because I'm friends with a couple girls who do Unfiltered and OnlyFans, and they're podcasters, and I'm friends with them. I mean, they're good people. They're not bad people by any fucking means, but it's just like, I mean, I've always been open about this shit, like sexuality, and like it's never been a thing that to me really was too private. I mean, yeah, I ain't gonna go telling stuff about me and my wife in public, but that's private between us. But I mean, when I was single, everything was an open book. I didn't give a fuck. But it's just I couldn't see myself as much as I mean, as much public shit as there's out there from me probably. I don't know. I don't go googling myself. Actually I have because of podcasting, but I don't come up with any results on the first page. Thank God. But I mean, so I just couldn't see myself going to that length that they do nowadays. Like putting myself fully on display out there for whatever people want to pay for. That just kind of seems degrading in a way. I mean, I more power to the ones who can do it because I guess you have more self-esteem and more mental power than I would have. But and as far as as far as females all should be having great orgasms, as you put it, and just pure sexual freedom. I mean, I'm 100% behind it. I don't think any woman should be or man should be stifled sexually. I don't think it should be that
Mm.
way. You should, because it's funny. I mean, I've thought about this, but I never really put two and two together until you were talking about it, and I was like, it's kind of funny how when a couple that's married for a long time, when one of the one half of them gets very sick or passes away suddenly. Gee, what happens to the other half? They all of a sudden start to get all these different illnesses and sicknesses, which one could correlate to that. One could correlate that to the fact that they're no longer having any sexual pleasure of any kind in their life, most likely because they're in mourning and they feel it. They either feel it would be cheating or they just are too sad to do anything about it. So I 100% agree. I mean, it should be a freedom sexually for everybody, and I mean, I 100% agree with that. It's a freaking good point. It really is a good point. I mean, and I've talked to other women who are in the same field, and I've been told 1,000 times it helps. It definitely helps from their perspective. And I mean, I am not female. I cannot speak on that behalf, but I mean, I can believe it helps. I
Immunity
mean,
booster.
it is. I mean, that's scientifically proven, as well as all the other hormones that release that do different things to the brain. But
That's right.
and I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you could like, I've done whole episodes on purely female topics, and it's interesting. I learned a lot in them because it's just things that men of my generation were not brought up to know, not brought up to really think about, even because it never was about that. It was always kind of not a double. It was always a double standard. Like we are supposed to get our freedom in that aspect, but women are not, which I never
Yeah.
truly agreed with. But I mean, who am I going to be the one to speak out about it? Years ago that wouldn't have been the case because it's just I would have got looked at like I was fucking insane, but,
Yeah.
or like why, or like asked
No, it's
why do you care? Like that's what I would have
also,
asked. Why do you care?
yeah, I mean, it even something like that. So Ayurveda has a perspective on that too, right? It's like the quote unquote double standard of sexual expression of male and female. And when I say male and female, I'm strictly talking about sex, not gender. And
Yeah, of course.
So in Ayurveda, believe it or not, the female body can stand to have several big O's and still have life force energy. In fact, the female body has way more life force energy. They are way more vital the more O's they have. But the male body, and it's like, if you're a man or if you are male, this experience. It's kind of like a one and done sort of situation. And that what we say in Ayurveda is that you deplete your own life energy as a male body through orgasm. So it is a double standard. And then to say about this sexual freedom and sexual expression, because women have a womb, or I should say females have a womb, which means they literally have an organ that's this cavernous space in their body, whereas males do not. Women tend to take on, or I got to keep saying females, right? But it's like females tend to take on the energy of people that they have sex with. And males don't necessarily get energetically tied in the same way. So it's true. The less sexual partners a female has, the less energy that they get tied to and accumulate from other partners. Whereas males do get energetically connected, but not in the same way, and it's not as detrimental. So technically speaking, it is healthier for women to have, or females to have, less sexual partners from that particular standpoint. So there's some like wild holistic science about all of that is truthful.
I mean, from the way, how do I say this? From the way you make the science seem, it seems like it'd be most beneficial for women to have amazing sexual experiences, but with the same partners, not with don't go Debbie does Dallas. Like just go.
Or at least with partners that really work, like
I mean,
speak to your soul, not just like, my 20s.
Oh, I mean, it basically comes down to the fact you said it. Like the energy that's shared with females during this is you're absorbing that energy guess what? Not every guy has good energy that's going to lift you up. There are
Yeah,
guys that have horrible
exactly.
energy, and this is where bad relationships come into play. This is where I mean, not to fucking put down my own gender here, but not the. This is where the abusers come. The abusers come into play. This is where the users come into play. This is where just guys that want to. They're kind of the alpha type of guys usually, but they're the ones that just they don't care about who they're sharing their energy with. They just
Yeah.
are in it for themselves. And this is why when my daughter gets older, I will have this talk with her where I will tell her, find guys who actually give a fuck about you. Not guys who are just in it for one thing. Fucking make them wait a little bit. I'm not telling you wait till you're married because that's ridiculously old school and outmeasured. But and I not like I did that shit, and not like my wife did that shit. So I mean, it's not like fuck. No, I mean, but find a guy that actually cares about you and wants to see you succeed in yes, in bed, but in every other aspect of life too. And that's the type of energy you want to share. You don't
Yeah.
want these guys who are just gonna be one and done and abuse it. Like, yeah, and yes, you're right. Men are 100% with their energy usually one and done. I mean, fuck, I take a little blue pill for a reason. But I mean, it's guys usually are one and done, and
No
I mean,
shame.
oh, I have no shame for that. It's a fucking perfectly natural thing that happens. But it's I mean, guys, yeah, we're usually one done, maybe get a snack, maybe be one and done again. But I mean, it's just, or maybe go smoke a freaking J and get it back up like Popeye, and then go back in the bedroom. But it's just, I mean, no, and unfortunately, we don't have that ability. Like, well, some guys do, some guys do. I've heard stories, but, and I mean, porn stars exist for a reason, but no, most guys are not that way. We don't have that energy that women do for that. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of a double standard against us as well because we don't have the ability to do that, and it sucks sometimes because especially when your partner wants to keep going, and you're just like, no juice left in this battery. Wait, please check back tomorrow. But it's just, I mean, I might be like, maybe in the morning. Maybe in the morning. There's always a little chance of that morning wood. But I mean, other than that, like, no, it's I want to go to sleep now. I expanded my energy for the night. I'm done. Let's go sleep. And you feel bad for your partner when you can't do that. It's horrible. It's really a horrible feeling if you
Yeah.
actually give a fuck about the other person. If you don't give a fuck, then you're just gonna roll over and go to sleep and not care. But if you give a fuck, it's a horrible feeling to know you can't provide when it's needed. I mean, it's trust me. It's as someone who has a certain pill for that reason, it's very devastating to your self-esteem, to your morals, and to everything else. It's just to your confidence. It just fucking
Mm.
devours it, and it's gone, and you don't get it back for a long time. And I mean, it's covered by insurance nowadays, and doctors understand younger people need it too. So, folks, gentlemen out there, don't be afraid to ask for it if you need it. It's not embarrassing. It's the conversation between you and your doctor and your partner. That's all it is. You don't have to go
Yeah.
advertising it like I do because I mean, I just like to be an advocate for all men who do need it and are scared to ask for it. Because
I love that.
someone has
Have you heard of Hims? There's a company called Hims.
oh, I see their advertisements on Facebook every 5 fucking minutes of
Aren't
my
they
life.
great? They're I think they're so fun. They're like it's
I
like a
I never actually
I
have
just
tried the
like their
product.
advertising.
Their advertising is definitely interesting. Some of it makes me laugh my ass off, but it's just like I I kind of want to try it, but I'm just like I don't know. I have something that I proved didn't work, so I'm gonna stick with this.
Right.
Like
I
I mean
love the like the advocacy for male
oh
sexual health and the
I mean
willingness to talk about it now. It's just so great.
it's all fair play because I mean I have a unique experience of when I was in middle school at my grandfather's house for a holiday. Actually, high school. High school. I had to be in high school at my grandfather's house for a holiday, sitting around watching some movie with my dad, my brother, my grandfather, and me. And what's this commercial coming on? Oh, it's for a woman's vibrator. This is an awkward commercial for a high schooler to watch with three male relatives. I'm just saying, very awkward to watch, and so the fact that they're not advertising for men too is just fair play in my mind because the four of us literally just looked at each other like, we're not talking about this, right? Okay, yeah, we're not talking about this. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Day continues, but I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't know. I am fully like promote sexual health and freedom on every aspect on this show when I can. It's not something I talk about every episode because it's not a topic that needs to come up with everybody. Because if people specialize in this, then yes, 100% it's going to come up at some point or another. Because sex sells. That old adage is always true. But I mean, and it's important. It really is important because they've proven it could be linked to so many different things. I mean, there'd be so many nicer senior citizens out there if they were still getting some kind of release on a regular basis. I'm not going to say daily because that might kill them, but on a regular basis. So, I mean, part of me feels like it should be a legal thing. I mean, I don't want to say prostitution, but it should be a legal thing for there to be shops that help people with that. Whether you want to make it a prostitution type thing or not, or some other type of service, massage type service maybe, I don't freaking know. It should be legal because you know what? People need it, and not everybody can get it on their own, and some people need to be able to pay for it. What can I say? I'm not gonna shame those people for what they need. So it should be a thing that exists, but there are other things they care about more than that in the world. So it's not going to happen anytime soon until there's more of a renaissance, I guess you could say, or even more of a oh, actually, it wouldn't even be a spiritual awakening. It'd be a sexual awakening. There needs to be another sexual awakening like there was in the 60s, 70s. And
I think it's coming. That was not a pun that I intended.
I didn't even catch that for a fucking second till you said that. I was like, oh my God. But
oops, that came out of my mouth. But I think that spiritual awakenings and sexual awakenings often follow each other. If you look at the 60s, it was like a spiritual awakening and a sexual awakening all at once. And I say that because I think, at least for me, spirituality and sexuality so complement each other.
wow,
A lot of people find it's contradictory, but I think they go so well together because they're both all about this world of creation.
Yeah, they are 100% right around each other. They are. I mean, they should be. It should be one the same thing. Spirituality is an umbrella term, and there should be a lot of things hanging out underneath it. And I love that you did the second pun of that just came out of my mouth without even freaking pausing. I literally was like this, trying not to die laughing when you said it. I didn't want to interrupt you. I didn't want to interrupt you, but it was just fucking hilarious when you said it. I was like, oh my God. She does one pun, not even on purpose, and then she does one, doesn't even react to it when she does it. I'm like, that's perfect. That's fucking comedy gold right there. But, Jesus. Well, I will say this episode took a turn I did not foresee coming before tonight, and I totally meant that pun. But, Jesus. Well, this just became one of my favorite episodes I've done in the last couple of weeks. Just saying. No offense to anybody, but it just definitely became one of my top favorite episodes, and I can't wait for my listeners to hear it in podcast form down the road. It'll be down the road, but I got a lot of episodes. But I do have some barking pups that need to get put to bed. So, where can people find you if they want to learn more about all this? If they want your services, spiritual services, folks. We're not advertising anything else here at this point, but that's in 50 years, maybe. I'll be an old man by then. So in 50 years, fuck yeah. But where can they find you? If they basically just promote yourself to the fullest, anything you want to throw out there.
Yeah, so you can definitely find me at my website, which is www.sharingheartsyogaandwellness.com. So I know it's a mouthful, but I couldn't bear to shorten it. So it's sharingheartsyogaandwellness.com. That's my website. And then you can find me on Instagram at Sharing Hearts Yoga. I'm on TikTok at Sharing Hearts Yoga. I do a lot of fun stuff on TikTok sometimes. You can find me on Facebook, Jocelyn Cruz. I'm on socials. And what I've got coming up next is I'm doing a 15-day Ayurvedic cleanse starting on May 6th. So I don't know if the podcast will be out, but I do cleanses. Yeah, I always have to ask, right? But I do cleanses 3 times a year. And I find that the Ayurvedic cleanses are great ways for people to dip their toes into the water, because it's 15 days and you get to throw it in the trash if you absolutely hate it. And you can take what you like. So, you don't have to adopt this whole lifestyle. you get 15 days to kind of try it out and see how it works for you. And you start pulling things that you really like. And that's how I first got into Ayurveda, really, like in terms of the living of my life. So that's like the most imminent. And I work with private clients too. And, I'm like kind of shifting my work with women to be more of not centralized as a sexual in a sexual way, like, but I am shifting my work to hold the space of sexual health as well, because I find it's really important, and it's also something I'm super passionate about.
As we discussed, as you should be. And there were so many puns in that right there. I just freaking.
Oh my gosh.
I know it's a mouthful, but I didn't want to shorten it. My God, when you said that, I literally had to like step back from the camera so I couldn't be seen laughing my ass off. Like while you're, I didn't want to ruin that. I didn't want to ruin your
I
outro.
love a good pun. I'm a sucker for good puns.
Oh, trust me, they get me. They are one of the reasons I'm on comedy podcasts. But this is not one of them actually. But I do like to throw comedy in when I can. But it doesn't always happen easily. But for all the listeners and watchers out there, and don't worry, actually, I mean, will this be released by May 6th? And by May 6th, I'll be releasing episodes I freaking recorded in January. But I record a lot. But there will be a lot of people that watch this in replay, and there are plenty of watchers on right now, so they all know about it. So it will be out there, and of course, I feel free to tag me and stuff if you want to share it out. I have no problem. I don't think I hear you. I don't think I heard. Did you say Twitter? I don't know if you did or not, but I have no problem retweeting, sharing out stuff. So, either way, especially for my guests, I'm always glad to give them a helping hand. Fucking puns, dude. Fucking puns. Everything's turning into a pun tonight. And I don't even mean it to be that way. It's just turning into puns. But Jesus. But all my listeners, you know where you could find me. If you don't by now, well, we said a lot in this episode. I don't want to shame you, but if you don't know where to find me, then fucking shame. But if you don't know, check the damn outro. It's all there. I don't like repeating it. It's a mile long freaking sentence. So check the outro, and of course, just or follow me wherever you're listening to this, watching this. You can find me easily. I'm not hard to find. The name of this podcast is not hard to find on the web. Trust me. You Google it, it comes up. If you Google my name, nothing comes up. But if you Google the podcast, I'm first page, right at the top, baby. So let's do it. And I will be back on Saturday morning with another interview and plenty more fun stuff coming up next week, too, I'm pretty sure. Off the top of my head, I have no freaking clue. But one day at a time, folks, one day at a time. But thank you all for listening. For those who are going to listen to the podcast from, and thank you all for watching, all 17 of you on right now. Woof. Good. I mean, it's funny. Once we start talking about sex, the listeners just the watchers just start bouncing up. It's like they just hear it in their heads, like, he's talking about sex. Go to Twitter. But
the sentient particles.
Exactly. The sentient particles are bringing people to me, and you said I'm not God. Jesus. But I'm sorry, folks. I'm in the mood tonight. After my day, it's a good thing. It's a good mood to fall asleep to. But catch you all next time. And remember, we definitely didn't make anything normal. Well, actually, no, we did make things normal tonight. We accomplished my goal finally. So you can find me on Facebook as Jeremy Bryant, or you can find me as Uncensored, Unapologetic, and Untamed UQ Podcast Collective Facebook group. You can find me on Twitter and the Instagram as @JuggaloBastard, or should I say X now. And you can find me on TikTok as @JuggaloBastard Podcast. You can also find me on YouTube as Paranormal The New Normal. And you can also find me streaming on YouTube as Blind Knowledge Network, because all knowledge is blind until they admit Bigfoot exists.